It's recording. Hello to everybody listening. My name is Vieux Toure. Today I'm here representing the University of Florida and the Black Law Students Association. I'm a student at the Levin College of Law. I am also here on behalf of the Center of the Studies of Race and Race Relations. And today I am here interviewing Judge Stephan Mickle. It is my privilege. He was the second to graduate from the University of Florida Levin College of Law. He was the first to graduate from the undergrad. And today I'm here to just ask Judge Mickle about his experience. It is really my privilege. And first I wanted to ask Judge Mickle, what was it that made you want to become a lawyer and go to law school?
I'm trying to remember. Well, maybe you can help me remember to answer that specific question. Because when I hear that question, my mind reflects back to, say, 1962. And of course, I graduated in high school in 61. And my thought then was to go to Bethune-Cookman College, which is where both my parents went to college, because none of the undergraduate schools throughout the South were integrated in 62. And so I graduated from high school. I wanted to go to the same college that my parents went to. Parents, I had heard about it, and they'd gone down there with them to witness football games and other things in high school. And so that's primarily the only college experience I knew about, was following in my parents' footsteps. And of course back then there was no integration. All the schools were segregated. And so any black high school student who was thinking about college was looking at the predominantly black colleges throughout the South as where he could find an opportunity to go to college. And so that was my first thought. Of course, Bethune-Cookman College was where my parents went, and so my thought was to go to Bethune-Cookman, which is where my parents had gone, and that's where I applied and got accepted there. And probably wasn't until either sometime late in 61 or early 62 that I started hearing about integration being attempted throughout the South, the white colleges then, that my thoughts started thinking about the possibility of transferring to another school. And I'm sure during that period of time that my thoughts centered around transferring to another college, but the University of Florida certainly not one of them. It was an old white school, and never had a black student integrated. And so my immediate thoughts were to transfer to either Howard University in Washington, D.C., one of the predominantly black universities throughout the South, that I could transfer from Bethune-Cookman to and just continue my education. And so that was my immediate thoughts. And probably it was during that freshman year that I ran into, maybe on one of my trips home to Gainesville, I met people and talked to people, and the talk got going throughout the South about blacks integrating in white schools. And somebody approached me, I don't know who it was, why don't you apply to University of Florida? And my thoughts were, you got to be crazy. Because my wife's stirring up trouble over there. She's probably remembering things I cannot. But I'm sure it was during that period of time. During 1961, 62, that year, that I started hearing talk about applying to the University of Florida.
When did you meet George Allen, and how was he influential on your transfer to the University of Florida?
I'm sure I met him during that year that I was a freshman at Bethune-Cookman, 61, 62. Probably on one of my trips home, that I guess my parents introduced me to him as being one of the black students who was going to Europe for law school. And so I went over to his house one evening and we talked. It was the whole idea of integrating Europe was a foreign notion in my mind. Number one, I had not heard that much about integration because it was a totally brand new concept. And certainly I had never met a black person who was going through that experience. And so I started talking with George and he said, yeah, he's done it. And if I was interested in going to University of Florida, I ought to apply, see what happened. And my first reaction was, why should I apply? And I remember his response was, that's your best way of going on to get a full college degree and going on to law school, if that's where you want to go. And so I started thinking about it. And I'm back and forth that year from Bethune-Cookman to Florida. My mind started thinking about it. And I'm sure, that was a lot of years ago, but that's what my first thoughts of being a lawyer, going to the University of Florida came about, was talking with him, doing those trips that I met him, doing my trips back and forth from Bethune-Cookman to Gainesville. And we would talk, and I'm sure my father introduced me to him at night. I'd go around to his home, or he'd come up to my father's house, talk about his experience of going to the University of Florida, and how he would encourage me to do that if I was interested in going on into law.
Great. So law, just the opportunity to ultimately become a lawyer you'd say that was what pushed you over to just going to make that move and being the first. And I wanted to also ask you, so what was your experience like when you got there, when you got on campus, and how was it to be the first? And I know there was I read last night that there was a lot of there was a very few others there, but you said you never had classes with any of them, and you probably didn't even really see them. So I guess how was it to be in class alone as the only black person?
From the time I got to University of Florida in September of '62, I never had class with another black student in it. So that's how it was. You went through your whole undergraduate experience. It's totally different from what you had experienced in high school or my freshman at Bethune-Cookman. And but at that point in time, I recognized that if I was going to do that I had chosen to choose to be the one and only in that experience, and that I knew that would be the price I'd have to pay if I was going to graduate from college at the University of Florida. And so, in talking to George, he was at the law school at the time. He encouraged me to enroll at the University of Florida undergraduate school, which means I came as a sophomore in undergraduate school. I knew that I'd be entering a school where I'd have no black classmates or no other blacks there who were going and taking the same courses I was taking. And that was it. And quite frankly, that was quite an experience to walk around the campus all day and not see another black except a janitor or somebody you knew was in a position of cleaning up the campus or doing menial type tasks at work there. There were no other black students there, and that was it. And that was quite an experience. That was quite an experience because I'd gone to black high school all my life. I'd gone to Bethune-Cookman College as a freshman the whole year, and then transferred to University of Florida as a sophomore, and not have another class, another black, was not a very pleasant experience. And yet I must say that I cannot remember one experience by a fellow white student that was antagonistic toward me, where somebody said something or acted a certain way, there was expressed antagonism toward me. They just ignored you, didn't speak to you, wouldn't sit beside you, just walked in different directions, and you walked around all day by yourself. Nobody to talk to, nobody anything to do anything with. And that was basically how my my sophomore year went at University of Florida.
How instrumental was your family and George Allen and just those people and just keeping you going and just emotionally during those years of studying?
I think they were essential. But for them, I don't think that I could have made it.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that every morning I left, and I lived right over here about 4 or 5 blocks from where I am now, that I left that house and could go out to the campus and go through the classes I had during the day, come back to the house, and that was home. And that was how my college life went. And it didn't take long to realize, I'd been at the film club for a year, that there were no football games on Saturday, no other kind of social activity that I had to engage in, that I had to cover. It was just me and going to an all-white campus and be ignored and go back to the black part of town. That was it.
I can only imagine. How I wanted to ask you, because I know like today at least the law is very collaborative, and just in terms of doing work, you need a whole team sometimes to just understand the content. And how was it for you just to always be doing everything by yourself when you got to law school, and just really just teaching yourself everything and going to class and dealing with white professors and white classmates? Did it get, how did you deal with it when you ended up going to law school?
It's been a long time, but what I can remember is that it was a very lonesome experience, and that I recognized that if I was going to make it, that I had to do it by myself. There was nobody else to talk to about concerns like anything else. I had to do it by myself. And this book my wife just handed me, a book that two, I guess, the professors at the university wrote, in which they featured me as the president at the University of Florida. They mentioned, what was his name? Who was the first one there?
George Allen?
No,
Virgil Hawkins.
Virgil Hawkins.
Yeah, they got a little section on me. This may talk more about it, the way it was when I first started there, and about Fletcher Baldwin, who was a professor there, who was very instrumental in befriending me and accompanying me and helping me accomplish my success while I was there. So maybe we'll just take a look at a couple of paragraphs and give a little insight into the way it was. I thought there was another book called that had a part of the story on it.
This is the book that you were talking about.
Yes, I was reading this.
Isn't this one of these over here?
But that's different, sugar.
Okay.
Also, as you started to have success with your practice and becoming a judge, and then just as you kept moving up, and whether it was at the county level and then at the 8th Circuit and then going on to be a federal judge in the Northern District and then becoming the chief judge. How did you watch that evolve, and how did it make you feel, like, just because you became more successful, more powerful, it was undeniable, but at the same time, like, you were still the only black person in the room, and I guess times changed. I guess they say it got better. I don't know how much better it really got, but I mean, how was it for you? Because you lived through just the evolution, not only in law, but just in the real world as well. So
I'd have to say it was very interesting to see society and people change throughout the years. Because I remember when I graduated from high school here, and everything was totally segregated. I mean, you got on a bus, you sat in a certain area, and you rode that same bus all the way out to University Park. And we went downtown, you sat in a certain section of the bus, and that was it. The segregated lunch counters was still segregated then. And because I watched society change as well as the way I was treated by people at the law school as well as the undergraduate school. You watch society change and you realize that you are a part of that change and that you're watching society change and society grow. And you see the society that you grew up in change, I think, for the better in time. You start saying, well, boy, he was certainly different when I was growing up. And having lived in this society through the days of Martin Luther King and on up through the Kennedy boys getting shot, right on up to the current situation, it's just amazing to me to see how far this country has come in terms of the way things have developed. Not to mention that we now reached a stage where we ended up with a black man as president.
yeah,
I would have never imagined that. Just couldn't imagine that ever happening. Having grown up here in a segregated society and going to a segregated high school and into a segregated college and coming to University of Florida as an old white school to see how this country has developed over these years. And that's why one of my thoughts is that it will continue to improve from what it was 57 years ago. It has to improve. But that's where it was.
thank you for being a pioneer for all that, because without people like you, it wouldn't have even been possible. And you talked a little bit about it, but just reflecting back on all of it, how does it make you feel now? Like, does it make you feel hopeful, great, or just mixed emotions going, like, looking back, but also looking forward? How does it?
I guess I'd have to say that it certainly gives me mixed emotions, but at the same time, it gives me hope. And this country will keep developing. Having grown up here, graduated high school in 1961, someone had told me that I'd see a day that a black man be president of this country. I'd tell him, man, what have you been smoking or drinking? That can't happen in this country. But it has happened, and a whole lot of things have changed, and society has changed. And that's when I see my children are going and talking about things, and they say, is that the way it was back then? I said, what do you mean back then? Way back then. I said, well, it wasn't that far back then, but it was back then. And I try and tell them that about sometimes here in Gainesville when I I can remember when the whole bus system was separate. When you rode in separate cars, if you were going to take a taxi downtown, that was totally segregated. It was legal that you be segregated, but things have changed. So, well, a lot has changed. A lot has changed. Oh, well, so much. Anything else about the University of Florida?
Yeah, I mean, so I wanted to, I guess, take it back to law school and when you were there, what made you want to go into open your own practice? I know you did public defense work and you also ended up being a judge, but why those specific areas of law?
Well, I think, quite frankly, the public defender's route was a way that you, a black person growing up, could enter into the mainstream of law. Mm. That you, the public defender route, you'd represent people who, quite frankly, could not afford their own lawyer. You do that for a while. And then eventually you got to the point where you could represent everybody, whether they had money or not. And so a lot of young black lawyers started off representing public defender or people who could not afford their own lawyers. And so my path followed that same course. And I can remember when I was in law school, and somebody told me when I was in law school that I would eventually, one day, graduate from that law school and eventually be asked to teach at that law school. I said, you ain't crazy. This place that I fought so hard to get in here and who fought so hard to keep me out, how am I going to end up teaching at this law school? But things change. So,
what made you ultimately decide to go back and teach when they asked you?
Yeah, well, what made me decide to go back and teach?
Asking about his first job in law school.
What was your first job like outside of law school?
I'm trying to remember my first job outside of law school.
Where we moved to?
Moved to Washington, D.C. and took a job with Office of Economic Opportunity, as it was called then. It was a new OEO, which was just getting started representing poor people and black people throughout the nation that could not afford their own lawyers. And so I took a job in that capacity. And because as such, I took a job, and I think this was attributable to the fact that I had gone to University of Florida and had the recommendation from University of Florida that I could take a job at a higher level than just coming out and going into private practice. I went in on a higher level. I went in as a staff attorney in the Office of Economic Opportunity in Washington, D.C., and so I went in at a higher level. And so when I went around the country meeting all these good folk and talking about changes that were coming, and that they had to get ready for it because it was coming. And the federal government was saying it was going to come. And so they sort of, okay, and said, yeah, since you got the money, you must know that it's going to come. And we created a lot of changes throughout the country with the Office of Economic Opportunity. And throughout, gotta look back on it now. That's been a long time ago. That was when I graduated, that was 1970.
What ultimately made you want to leave Washington, D.C. and come back to the South, come back to Gainesville?
Well, I think primarily the reason I wanted to leave is because I always had the ultimate desire to practice law, do what I had seen on television. prepare Mason to do every day. I didn't want to see myself in the courtroom and doing all those magic things prepare Mason would do, and walking the innocent man out, and have people slap you in the back and say, "Great job, lawyer. You did a good job." And but I realized after a while that was not to be my calling. That I was destined to go in a different direction that would be more on a I want to say a supervisory level. So I ended up coming back to the law school and teaching. I don't know how many generations of young law students how to practice law and how to go into legal services work in manufacturing, or at least encourage change in the law throughout the land.
Where did you go when you came from Washington?
Where did you go when you first came from Washington?
Okay, when I first came from Washington, we moved to Fort Lauderdale. And that's where I knew just from general contact that the first black law student who had graduated, who had gone to University of Florida, was practicing law at Georgia. And so I told him about the possibility of getting into practice with him and developing what I considered a private law practice. And he said yes. And so we went to Fort Lauderdale, and I hooked up with George Allen and ended up down there practicing law with him for 7 years. And I enjoyed that. But after a while, that got kind of tired and old to it. Mm-hmm. And so at that point, I started getting calls from white law schools about, "Why don't you come up and teach?" And I started saying, "Well, why should I do that? That's not what lawyers normally do." And then I started thinking, and then the pressure started coming from all sides toward me to say, "There is more you can do than just practice law." And the opportunities kept availing themselves. And I got opportunities from teaching law to go to other law schools and get involved in other kind of things that I like doing as well. And so me and my wife decided to follow several of those opportunities. And I'm glad I did it this day.
When you ended up becoming a professor of law, what were the different ways you were able to create community for the black students that were under you and just help pave the way for them, make it a better environment than you had when you were a student?
That's a good question. I think, in fact, if they could say, "Why are you not teaching?" I could say, "Well, just think, you now have that opportunity. It wasn't available to you 10, 20 years ago." And see more and more black law professors now than you saw 10, 15 years ago. Because white law schools are now saying, "Hey, you can teach just like you can do X, Y, Z." And so it's opened up opportunities for you to be engaged in things other than the practice of law. And I realize that going into practice of law is not the only thing that a black lawyer can do. And your opportunities just expand out. Various different things.
What did you first do when you came back to the law school?
What did you first do when you first came back to the law school?
I think when I went down to Fort Lauderdale and worked with George Allen for a year or so, I came back to Gainesville. The dean of the law school asked me if I come back and run the legal aid clinic. Mm-hmm. And I thought to myself, why in the world would I go back and run a legal aid clinic? Well, you have an opportunity to teach, and you have a guaranteed source of income, and you can expand out your knowledge among others. And so I said, well, that's an opportunity. And I think the important thing to remember is that you don't really see it until you have these opportunities. That practicing law is not the only thing a lawyer does. It's just one area that opens up other areas to you. And I remember as a judge, as a law professor teaching law, I got various opportunities from other sources. Federal government had positions open, they offered these positions in. I turned them down and went and did what else I wanted to do. And that's always been my case since then.
When you were first a law professor and running the legal aid clinic and stuff of that nature, I'm assuming that you have white students as well, and how were they like to you? Just as because you were probably the first black professor that they ever had, and how was that?
I'd have to say it was awesome in the sense that, number one, they recognized that obviously I had something that they wanted. I had a position. I could recommend them for employment or not recommend them for employment, or I could teach them the way to practice law and get a job or not get a job. And I've written many letters of recommendation for young lawyers to get jobs, either with law firms or with government positions or other types of positions. And that has been an opportunity for them that they would not have ordinarily had. So I know. I think one of the things it has done for me, it has recognized that the course I took has opened up a lot of opportunities for me that I would not have ordinarily had if I had just gone out and practiced law, period.
Thank you so much for everything that you've just shared with me today and shared with the listeners of the future. And for some closing remarks, is there anything that you would want to tell future listeners that I haven't asked you or you haven't shared already? Is there anything that you want them to know?
One, I guess, not necessarily want to know, but they should not simply see themselves as having to practice law only. They may decide to teach law or go to work for government or whatever, but their options are much more than simply practicing law. Much more than that.
What do you mean by just like much more than practicing law? Like, what does that mean to you? Like, just the alternative career paths or the opportunity to be a leader?
All of the above. As I travel around and meet lawyers, I see them doing things that I didn't imagine lawyers did. Maybe it means teaching, it means holding administrative positions, government positions, or doing things. I was surprised enough to recognize the number of lawyers who work as a full-time lawyer with the governor's office. I said, what the world do with the governor's office? That's not what lawyers do according to the books I read. He's doing fine. He said, I'm general counsel for the governor so-and-so. And that has turned out well for him in the future. So the first thing I encourage him to do is explore all available opportunities that you see, and don't limit yourself to say, I simply want to be Perry Mason that I watch on TV this week. Because that's not what lawyers do for a living, by and large. They do a lot of other things.
Lastly, just to conclude, can you talk about some of your positive experiences with BOLSA, either at University of Florida or just at other schools, and just different positive things that you've seen and been able to participate in with BOLSA?
I think with BOLSA, it's primarily been the connections they have caused me to engage in with other either BOLSA chapters or other members of BOLSA throughout the country. And meeting them and talking to them about different things they're doing, different paths they've taken. So I think the last thing, a young black lawyer wants to do right now, I think, when I graduated from law school, I forgot to go out, hang up my shingle. I was practicing law 9 to 5 every day of the week on the street corner somewhere. There are many other things lawyers do I just did not realize until I got out and looked around and figured out what it is that lawyers do. In October, we just finished law school in Stephan.
2004. There she is up there.
And she has a job in Washington, D.C. And what's her title, Levin?
She was general counsel to Senator Bill Nelson.
Okay, but that's an interim position. She did not
She
take
was in
that
public
job.
policy.
Yeah, you didn't take those interim positions in terms of doing that for the rest of your life. You know, I got out of law school, I thought I'd hang up my shingle somewhere and I'd be there practicing law. That's about for the rest of my life. The thing to remember is that a law degree is simply an opportunity for you to look around and see what other things you can do with this law degree. I'm just glad that those opportunities are now opening themselves up. Young black lawyers are saying that there are many other things I can do rather than say I'm going to handle divorce cases only for the rest of my life. If that's what you decide to do, you can certainly do that, be happy. But that's not the only thing that you can do with a law degree.
Yes, you're right. Especially in today's day and age, there's just so much opportunity.
That's right.
When you get that Juris Act or the LLM or whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Judge Mickle. Thank you, Mrs. Evelyn Mickle, for both of you just for sharing so much knowledge with us and helping the Black Law Students Association today to just get more knowledge and get this oral history of your experience at UF and at UF Law and here in Gainesville. I'm Vieux Toure, and thank you again, Judge Mickle and Ms. Evelyn Mickle, and thanks for listening.
This was a black law professor at Howard University. We being the faculty invited him down here to teach at the law school.
You were a student.
Okay.
Let's let you know.
That had to be in the summer in the
68.
late 60s. We invited him so here to teach. He came down because he knew some of the white law professors then, and he invited him down to teach. What course did he teach? I forget now.
I don't remember what Spencer Boyer taught, but you could probably Google it. But he was here the semester that must have been the winter semester, Stephan, because Martin Luther King was assassinated in 68, April of 68. Okay, finish telling the story.
I want to let you finish it, because I know Spence was here and he left, went back to Howard.
How did he get back?
I think he drove back probably.
Who drove him? You and Clyde Ellis.
And we didn't drive him.
He
Took his
flew,
car back. Yeah, he flew.
and you all
He
drove
took
his
his car
car with
back,
his
that's right.
belongings. And he flew them back. Because I don't know who the dean was at that time. Was Maloney still dean? I think Maloney was still dean. And they felt for his safety because he lived, you know where Winn-Dixie is right there on 16th?
Yeah.
He lived in those apartments right next to Winn-Dixie. And Fifth Avenue was burning. Fifth Avenue was burning. And they wanted to get him out safely. So they put him on a plane. And some of the professors and students went over and packed his belongings. And of course he didn't have that much because he just came for a semester. And he and Clyde Ellis drove his car to D.C.
And Clyde Ellis was a white law student.
Yeah.
He was considered a long-haired hippie back in those days.
And you had a few more that was
A few.
a few. Fort Lauderdale, what's the Jewish guy? We just saw them. We met them specifically after we got married. This was 68. We got married in 68.
I know that if I'm remembering correctly, like Frederick Levin and George Allen had a very good relationship. Did you ever have like a relationship with Frederick Levin or
No.
no?
They were probably gone by the time I got there. No. I heard the story of Freddie Levin, but never had any
And George
relationship.
Stark, one of the Levins, befriended George Stark and studied with him. And he tells that story too. But they were gone by the time he got there. But there were some others. Clyde Ellis. I was looking at those names the other day. If I can remember them, I'll write them down.
I would be willing to do this though, as my wife mentioned. I'd be willing to come out to law school and meet with the black law student as they want in private, or they want to have a general meeting with everybody and talk about anything they want to talk about. Race relations or whatever. It was.
Dale Sanders. Dale?
Yeah. Back in the old days, I don't remember doing that. But talk to them about the way it was back then. We're talking about late 60s.
Yeah, we would definitely love to have you come and just pick your brain on every and anything, honestly, and just hear more about your experience.
I'll be glad to. Be glad to. Sitting here looking at this window, it's a little old at times. But some of those blacks down there, it brings back memories of before I finished law school, etc. And even that was up there by the president, who was that, Clinton,
Yeah, he appointed you.
as a federal district judge.
So Clinton.
It's just bringing back memories of the way things were back in the old days. But
I want to show you this because I'm pretty sure that it's you've seen it online. But when the Center for Race Relations Studies honored him at the 10th year of being a judge, have you seen that?
No.
I think there's a virtual in the lower library. There's a virtual display, and I don't know. I think that's where they got this from. But you can come on out here. Oh, and another thing I wanted to ask you: do you all have need for Florida law removal? Y'all do everything online?
I think there's both online and the hard copy books.
Okay. I just hate throwing them away. And then he gets these every month. And, I don't know if any of the students would even pick them up. I just know my daughters tell me, Mama, everything is online now. And I said, well, I don't know, Stephanie. Everything may be online, but sometimes you might not be able to get online and you just hit something and you want to pick it up. You want to come out here, baby, or you want to just sit where you
I'll sit back.
Okay, here's a virtual. This is what they display.
It's amazing.
I bet you Catherine Russell Brown got this, because she was here yet.
Any dates on there?
Of course there is.
Okay.
I can't see them, but there's got to be a date on it. So this was done in 2008. But the timeline starts.
Oh, like 43.
And that is that when Virgil Hawkins began, or that 43, then 44 he was born. You see? They really did a wonderful job. And so my husband had this framed. Their George.
Yeah, I mean.
Thursday. For our loss. For all of us. So you want to? The boss of chapter is named after him. That's your grandma. So here, 66, he earned his master's degree in education. Spent for a year, I thought he was in here. In 69, what did they say? He is hired as a visiting professor at which should be 68. But we weren't married. And I can tell you the exact year and the exact incident. It was when Martin Luther King was assassinated. He took me to his parents, and he and I illustrated a conflict. And I stayed there until, because I lived in an apartment over near Norman Home. And I was working. So Spencer Boyd, they're 1 year off on this. And this was all like it in 72. Aaron Green will come to first African American man. The second one, he was flying with time challenge. And, I was trying to figure this out. Black Heart Society. But that's something y'all need to research. I really think Hazel Land may have had something to do with she was the first woman Stephan, who was did Hazel Land? Was she the one that was instrumental in formulating Balsa? And were you the first advisor?
I can't tell you, I don't know.
You know, he had a really serious illness. But he remembered a lot of things he didn't give him. Balsa was founded. I don't think when Balsa was founded.
I know that you were there.
Black student union, BSU. Up in there, that's you, that's black student union. He was the first black alumni president. They doesn't give me any credit, but I attended more meetings than he did. Me and George Buchanan.
That capital is still first on his family both Alberts.
Yeah, George is an out. Now that's really the connection. That's really the connection. Stephan was pledging Alpha at Bethune-Cookman.
Mm-hmm.
And so when he came home that summer, he was a lifeguard at the pool. You know, Daddy.
Yeah, you told over 50,000 people in
Yeah. Well, anyway, by him, they got special provision to make him in a grad chapter because he was transferring to University of Florida. And that's the George piece right there. Right there, that's the significant George piece. George lived over near. As a matter of fact, the Jennings, who was a very dear friend of ours, and our middle daughter's godparents, bought the house where George and Enid lived. And George was here last year. I want to thank some of the Balsa students came to the program at the church. But anyway, that's the piece. That's the piece. He's right, they did go over to George's house. But the significant piece was the Alphas and the support of the Alphas. Because one of his high school teachers, Dr. Rawls, and Dr. Rawls, I'm sure they all encouraged him. But, ultimately he had to be the one to go out there. But George Allen and the Alphas, that's the link. That's the link. And I'm sure George did not turn him loose until he had him convinced. Because he had come. George didn't even tell him what his race was.
Really?
No. They didn't know it until he showed up.
I didn't know that.
Read his history. Read his history. You don't have to tell everything. Apparently. If he had put his race on there, they wouldn't have accepted him. Well, they would have. But, they might have been more suspecting. They might have been more suspecting. And might have given him a more difficult time. They did boo him and shuffle him. Did you ever get booed or shuffled in law school?
No.
Well, George did. George did. But he had his family to go back to. He had his family to go back to. Those students that didn't stay, they didn't have their family to go back to. I didn't have my family to go back to. I did have a church family to go back to go to. And that was the other thing with him, was his pastor, Reverend Wright, Thomas A. Wright, had just became pastor at Mount Carmel. And he was
62.
62. 62 is a big year. 62. So those are some key factors. And I'm sure I thought we gave